Welcome to the Insurance Revolutionized podcast brought to you by Success Without Sacrifice. I am your host and coach, Cheree, and here on the podcast, we are on a mission to revolutionize the way women in insurance do business. We will be interviewing women who are changing the face of insurance, as well as giving you tips and inspiration to grow your agency to new heights without sacrificing what is most important to you. Let's get started. Welcome to today's episode. Before we get started, I want to just let you know that this is part 2 of a 2-part series. So we're going to jump right into conversation. And that's because this episode is a conversation carried over from last week's episode, which was episode 12. So make sure you go back and listen to Lisa LeBlanc's episode part 1. Again, that's episode 12 before diving into this, because otherwise this episode isn't going to make much sense to you. So glad to have you here today. Just make sure you go listen to part 1 and then come back and join us for today. Let's get started. Coming back to kind of team members and team performance and team culture, because team culture is really important to you guys, you were having some issues with a team member that was kind of wreaking havoc on your company, and it got to a point where there were write-ups and potential, like, are we going to have to let this person go? And you and I had kind of talked about this so Lisa and I had done a 3-month coaching package together. And so it was after that that these team issues were continuing to go on. And sometimes if there's burnout or exhaustion, that can create team conflict, right? So the RAMP method can help with that. But if there's still ongoing issues, then there's something deeper. And Lisa and I had talked about a couple things. And, I just kept saying, I feel like she is stuck in a victim mentality, and she's stuck with some old past limiting beliefs that are keeping her stuck, that's creating this culture. And part of it too, Lisa, she had really looked to you as a mother figure. And so there ended up being some resentment with other team members, and there was just kind of a lot going on. And so Lisa was finally like, this isn't working. Lisa, kind of tell us about that a little bit. What was happening? How was it affecting your team as a whole, team performance? Because I know there were certain things that she was saying, right? And one of those was she needed more money. She needed a raise, but then you would put these performance bonuses in front of her and she wasn't reaching them. And there were just certain things that you kept trying to do to help her based on what she was communicating. And so you just felt like it didn't matter what you did, nothing was ever improving. So kind of talk us through that a little bit, because I think this is really important for people to hear who have team members, especially if it's in office. It's one thing if you're virtual, there's a certain team culture that you need there that, that can come in. But when you're in a small space together, working together 5 days a week, that can have a real impact. It was having a real impact on your emotional, mental health. So just kind of talk about anything in that arena, how it affected you, how it affected your team, and kind of go from there.
Oh my goodness. So it would wreak havoc. It would. Like, we'd have team meetings and I'd leave the meeting and just wait. I would just wait for the reaction, like the ripple effect of the reaction, because they weren't able to share what they wanted to share or show up in the way that she needed to show up for herself. And so it would happen afterward. And I realized that I was creating an environment for her that was more enabling than empowering. And so I was allowing certain behaviors or trying to give her space to just develop and learn tools, and instead of empowering her to find the tools she needs to end specific behavior. And that's where realizing I couldn't do it. Like, I couldn't be those things for her, and she needed to find the tools on her own. And so having to make that hard decision of these specific things need to end, need to stop. And the only resource that I could offer her at the time was you, which was transformative. Like, I was willing to give her this tool, and this is what I have available to you, and this is it. Yep.
Yeah. And it's interesting because, and I remember, we had talked about this, and you had this level of, she's a good person, and this, I don't know if it was a guilt, but like, you knew that it wasn't working, but there was also this, like, I don't want to let her go necessarily either, but that's like something has to change. Something has to change. And so, her and I had started working together, and, it was really interesting. And I took her through the same process that I took you through, that I take every other client through. And that really comes down to really getting like really, really clear on values and priorities. And so for her, we had worked through some stuff, and I remember just asking her, like, if you could do anything, if you had 1 year to live and you could do anything, like, what would you do? You know, and she had said, I would, like, she wants to do insurance. She has this heart for insurance. And then she also has this heart for really helping people who have been through trauma and pain. And like, she just gets those people, and she has this like sweet spirit about her. And she also has this skill set, with Excel spreadsheets and all of the stuff that I was like, you would be like an amazing VA. And so we had the conversation of, do you need to, cause she wanted more responsibility. She had this vision of what she thought her role was going to be within the agency. And she just felt like, she says, like a glorified receptionist, and she felt like her skill set was not being used, and she wanted to contribute more, but she didn't know how to communicate that. And so the way that she was communicating it was very, abrasive. And
passive aggressive.
Yes. And so it was really interesting, like digging down to that, like what's going to fulfill you? Because yes, you're saying you need money, but these performance bonuses are being put in front of you and you're not hitting them. And that just comes back to fulfillment. Like, some people are driven by money. Some people are driven by fulfillment. Some people are driven by serving, and some people want to be leaders. And so it's really digging in and learning, what does each individual person need? And so we had the conversation of, does she go off and start her own agency? Is that what she needs to do? Does she need to be in charge of herself and not in the midst of a team? And so there was definitely some conversation back and forth about that. So I'm curious, where are you guys kind of at now? How has that helped, and what's changed?
The number one thing is she changed, and I can relate to it, because when I didn't know myself well, or I wasn't able to communicate my needs or even understand my needs, I was floundering, like flailing. And that's what I would see in her, is something wouldn't sit right or wasn't meeting a need for her. And it would just be this big emotional or like oppressive reaction to the environment, because she didn't know herself. And so going through the tools that you had provided and the different exercises and understanding our values, and one thing that has helped me and her is that concept of, ask yourself, if you can't figure out the answer right off, ask yourself why 5 times. So why does this bother me? Okay. Why does that bother me? And then drill down to getting to the bottom of what we're trying to say or what we're needing. And so getting to know herself, the last year, she has blossomed. Like, she realized she loves, so she was in an account management role, and it's a lot more proactive. It's a lot more renewal reviews and hands-on. And she realized that she loves to serve. Her heart is a helper. And so she loves the receptionist role. She loves taking the calls and giving solutions, and then outsourcing a little more of the more complex or bigger tasks to the team members that excel in those things. And then she also, with her Excel spreadsheet and her database wizardry. She has created these spreadsheets for us that help us track our goals every single week. And they are incredible. Like, and I didn't know how valuable it would be until she just started asking if she could try. And so she's created these spreadsheets. She handles all of our like management system anytime it needs adjustments, or we got a new text messaging portal and she has set that all up. And I hate all of those things, but she loves them. And so anytime that the team needs assistance or our database isn't working or we want to see if it can be enhanced, like that is her heart. You just see those little heart emojis all over her head. Like those are so.
Which is funny
so,
because when she told me that like how much she loves doing all this stuff, I was like, does Lisa know that you have this skill set? Because I guarantee that this would be a valuable asset. Like this is something you outsource to other people, and you know, and so I love that she started speaking up and like saying, and you know, she had I think when her and I had talked, she was like, well, I try to say this can be done better, but I think the way that it was coming off, especially, and we talk Enneagram a lot, and so with your other team member who's a 1 and Kristen is a 8.
I think she's a 3 or 2. What's the helper?
A 2. You're right. 2, but she goes to an 8 in stress. And so it ended up being like this butting of heads instead of this open communication of how can we work together and collaborate together. And there was this jealousy piece that was there. And so it was really digging down into where is all this really coming from and why is it there? Even back to, you know, sometimes that's going back to like childhood experiences. And the problem is if you don't dig in and get down to the root of those things, it doesn't matter how many write-ups you do or how many goals you set for a person. They are subconsciously going to go back to what feels safe and protected. And so she had gotten to this point where she put up a barrier of safety and protection. And so she started to basically subconsciously sabotage because it was basically like, well, I'm going to make the decision of if I'm let go, it's going to be because I've made the decision. And so I'm going to wreak havoc. So they have to fire me basically. And so it was this like wall of protection she had put up because she had gotten so close to you, especially Lisa. And she had just started putting these walls and these barriers up. And so she wasn't able to communicate, and it just turned into kind of this chaos. So, I love that you're talking about this and opening this up, because I think this is so important, because people, a lot of times they just end up firing, right? It's a couple write-ups and then they fire and they let go. And sometimes that's what needs to happen, but sometimes not. And if you can get down to the root cause, it can save you time and money and energy, right? Because firing somebody and having to rehire and retrain somebody that may or may not work out, and you might end up with the same issues, then you just end up in this vicious cycle. So, and I know you were at a point where you were like, Cheree, is there any hope? Because this is not working. Like, we are at a point where this is not going to work. And I was like, just give me like one more week. Just give me a little bit more time. So I think it's just really interesting. And prior to me coming into the picture with her, I was even like, Lisa, if this is having a negative impact on you and your health and your team environment, like, at some point you're going to have to make the decision to let her go. Right. So, I just love that it came out on the other side, and, you know, I know it's an evolution and a working progress, but the fact that you guys are where you are, is, I think, just a testament to you as well, and for your heart, and really investing in your people and your employees, and, really having a heart to want to help them. So, yeah, and I know that you guys, and we talked about this a little bit, but I love that you not only focus on the professional development side, because that's what most companies do, but the personal development side, right? So they get to choose their money to go wherever they want it to go. And at the end of the day, if somebody is not healthy in their personal life, they're not going to perform well at work. And so if you want your team culture and your team to be performing well, it's important to support their mental health, their emotional health. It's important to give them tools to manage their stress, because we can get really focused on they have to learn this, certain thing about the industry in order to grow. And it's like, yeah, but if they're not healthy in their life, they're not going to be healthy for you as an employee. So,
and there were some lessons that I learned through the process with her where, like, I'm very protective about my time, money, and energy as well. Like, we don't have a lot of extra time or money for walking with somebody through a bunch of emotional or like development stuff all the time.
Yeah.
So what I learned through the process was like, I needed to hit it harder and faster sooner. And now that I have the tools and resources for how to assist and support and pretty clear defined expectations, I think will help going forward.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a good point too, of like, you have to know what you're able to invest in somebody too, and what you have available financially to help somebody. And at a certain point, sometimes, and we had this conversation too, sometimes the best thing you can do is let somebody go so they can go find what they need to be doing, because not everybody is going to be fulfilled in the insurance industry, no matter what you do. But if you have somebody who is really passionate about the insurance industry and they're having these issues, then something else needs to happen, whether that's encouraging them to go to therapy or, whatever that looks like. So yeah, I just love it. And so this whole conversation is literally why, our target market is insurance. And so I had mentioned when Lisa and I first met, I was working with mompreneurs. I was transitioning into working with female entrepreneurs, but I didn't really know what that looked like. And then I worked with Lisa and her team and just really fell in love with kind of just the insurance industry and how it worked. And I was like, man, if this is how like insurance functions, I want to be a part of it. And I didn't even really like associate or recognize that I could work specifically with insurance agents. That really didn't come in until Tarah came into the picture. And when her and I were talking about partnering up in business, and she was like, Cheree, it's funny because I was like, I want to do a Success Without Sacrifice conference. And she was like, wait, like, who's your target market? And I was like, I don't know, just women. I don't know. I just have a really heart to help women, and I want to help, women follow their passion and be successful business owners, but also like have this fulfillment and not sacrifice themselves. And, and so as she started like questioning and asking like, who is your ideal client? I was like, Lisa is my ideal client. Partly because of just your heart and your values, but also just working with the team and the team culture and the team performance and working with individual team members and all of that. I really love. That's like really my zone of genius, that I don't think I even put together or realized until I had worked with you and your team. And so Tarah was like, why is your target market not insurance, like female insurance agency owners? I was like, I don't know. Is that even a thing? Like, can I do that? Is there even enough of them out there? So, really that's why I said this podcast is because of you, Lisa. And, the reason that we're here in the world of insurance, which one of the reasons we started this podcast is to learn more about insurance and the industry itself and the different lines of insurance, to really be able to help clients. And Lisa, one thing you and I had talked about recently, I was like, I kind of have this imposter syndrome because like, I don't know, I'm not from the insurance industry. I don't know anything about insurance. But you had a comment that just kind of like really hit with me. And you might remember, I can't even remember specifically what you said, but do you remember what you said? It was, you said something about, you were like, cause I was like, it's not like I've had an agency and I can like mentor people in insurance. But I can see how to make things more efficiently. I can see what's the missing gap. I can see where people are getting stuck. And you had said something like, I actually would prefer not to have a business coach who's in insurance.
Oh, yes.
And that's what you said.
Yes.
And would you just break that down for a second? Because I just thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, I didn't want someone else to tell me how to do my operations better or different, like, which is all great.
Yeah.
But that's my skill set. So I needed someone to walk alongside all the rest of the chaos that was happening and like help me make sense of it. And with our industry, there are a lot of high performance women. Like the women in our industry that lead agencies, they are strong, smart, capable, intuitive, like powerhouse women. And they're required to be like, it's a gift. And so working with a coach that can speak the language of high power, high performance women is exactly what I needed. Like, I don't want to talk about the insurance industry. I want to talk about like how to get our values like out loud and live them.
Yeah.
And then like work it backward into the company and what that looks like. And so that's
I love it.
why I
And
love
you,
it.
one of the things you had said too, you were like, I still use the tool, like the listening to your body for
Yep.
your yes and your no,
Yep.
which is very important for you right now. And
Mm-hmm.
we didn't talk about this before, but I had asked you, is there anything off limits that you don't want to talk about? So Lisa has a friend named Greg.
F. Greg.
Lisa, tell us about Greg.
Yes. So Greg is the tiny little tumor on my pituitary in my brain. And your pituitary is your master gland. And so it affects your hormones, your thyroid, your metabolism, your adrenal, your cortisol. Like it just controls your body. And as I developed Greg, I've been learning way more about my body. And so your vagus nerve travels from your brainstem throughout your body, and it sends up all these signals. So if you are in chronic stress, and if you are in if you're not in alignment with your values and your business and what's going on around you, it will send out these like warning signals throughout your body, and it leads to all sorts of things like weight issues, blood pressure issues, digestion is a big one, speech, fogginess. And I would always poo-poo that in the past. Like if something didn't feel right, just push through. Maybe you're overthinking it. Don't be so emotional. But really it's my body saying, this is not a good place for you. You need to do something different. And one of the causes of brain tumors, pituitary tumors specifically, is chronic stress, is constantly being out of alignment. And so now I have been required to, and which I would encourage everybody else to do, is just be so aware of what your body is telling you. Like we are strong and capable women that have intuition. Like we've been given this God-given gift on purpose for us to lead well. And we can't do that unless we're listening to our bodies talk to us.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And, it's hard to explain that. And so I talk about, we do mind body connection, but I don't know that people really associate what that means. But, I know for me, I'm a high achiever, high performer, have been my whole life. And same thing. I would just push through. I would never allow myself to be sad, or I would never allow myself to go to dark places. I would never allow myself to feel. I would just push.
Mm-hmm.
And your body can only do that for so long until something breaks mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. Like eventually
Mm-hmm.
something's going to break. And it shows up differently in every single person. But when you can learn where stress lives in your body,
Mm-hmm.
And why that stress is there, and you can become aware of it. It doesn't mean it's going to disappear and it's never going to be there. It's going to be there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But when you can learn to listen to it and know oh, that's what that feels like, and that's where that's in my body. And so it brings us awareness of something needs to change,
Mm-hmm.
or I need to say yes or say no.
Mm-hmm.
Do I say yes to this, or do I say no to this? And learning where that is at in your body as well. And it sounds like woo woo, and right, people are especially if you're a high performer, high achiever.
Yeah. We're white knucklers.
Oh yeah. Who doesn't sit still, who doesn't know how to like be still with themselves, that can feel really hard. And it can feel like, nope, no, thank you. But there's this freedom and this peace within it that once you learn how to do it and you learn how to listen to it, you don't have to live in a stress anymore. Yes, the stress might be there, but you're going to get out of it a lot faster, and it's going to be there less. And it's this, Lisa, I'll let you kind of talk to your experience of this, but what feels different now? Because you even mentioned like that, I was like a different person, then. What feels different about now versus then? Even though you have this health issue that's going on, that's limiting what you can do. In some ways, you don't have a choice but to listen to your body now, right?
Right.
You can't just push through. And so part of that is just, fatigue and that. So tell us kind of where you're at now versus where you were back then.
One of the big takeaways that I've had over the last several years and just making mistakes and trying again and falling and failing, has been, I was really hard on myself around making mistakes or hurting people or not leading well, but realizing I'll feel that, like I need to process it, but knowing like the disappointment or the shame, those feelings will fade, but I can still keep that lesson and use it going forward. And that's been one of the big ones of like learning to listen to my body. Like that didn't feel well. I didn't respond the way that I wanted to. That stinks, but I'm going to use that lesson and do something different next time. And so when I have the capacity to listen to my body and show up well for people, that feels like giving generously. And that's one of our values. When I'm just saying yes and showing up and doing all of the things and I'm so depleted, and again, I said this in the beginning, but that is the opposite of being generous. Like that is stealing from myself and stealing from the moment. And so when my heart says, say yes, I know I can do that and be 1,000% in. When my heart says, no, you have a really big week and that's going to be one thing that you can't show up well at, I'm giving the gift to myself and to the other person or to the activity of, I'm not a good fit this time. So I'm not going to be able to show up well and give generously, like give all that I have to give in that moment. And so starting to see it that way too, like giving generously to myself and not robbing somebody else.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love the like giving generously and that you tied it back to just the values of your agency as well. And one thing I want to point out is, we talk about values, right? But we can have values in business, but those are not always necessarily the same values as in life. And yes, sometimes they coexist and they go together, but, when I talk, because you were very clear on what your values are within your agency, right? But when I talk about values, I'm also talking about like what goes on your calendar and what doesn't, right? And so like you are community oriented. So like that would be a yes, maybe, right? But so you say yes to it, but is it a yes right now? And that's where I feel like the RAMP method is the most valuable and the most helpful of like, what is the purpose of this season? And does this yes align with this season or does it not? And kind of bringing all that together because, and one of the things that I always do on our intake is if you had 1 year to live, what would you do differently? And that really gets down to the heart of people's values. And like, yes, maybe it would be like, going off and traveling for a year and that doesn't work for business. But at the end of the day, it helps come back and bring it back home into like, but where do I really want to spend my time and energy? And if that's what I value, then what can I do within my business to create space for that? And it may not look like a whole year off, right? But it could look like a week off, where you can completely just unplug. And this is one of the challenges that I hear probably the most from women and business owners specifically is knowing how to turn work off at the end of the day or to go on vacation or whatever that is. So what
Mm-hmm.
does that look like for, because I know when you and I were working together, a lot of that was coming home with you.
Yeah.
Maybe your brain wasn't actively think about it, but like in your
Mm-hmm.
body, you were feeling it and you were just emotionally drained.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you feel? Has it changed to be able to go on that week vacation knowing that your business is running successfully, and can you actually like turn your brain off of that?
Yes. And this is the first season, like I would say over the last year, that I've been able to wholeheartedly say yes to that question. Not just a week vacation, but weekends, evenings, like there has been the ability to separate. Like this is what happens at work and then this is what happens at home. And it's especially hard working with my husband because we could easily just all through dinner in the evening talk about challenges or highs or lows, but we limit it to the drive home. If we're riding together, it's what was your high, your low of the day, and then it's over. And part of that has come back to like practicing. If I'm not in accordance with my values, something is stealing from me. And so if we want more time, more money, more energy for our team and ourselves, like I think what is stealing my energy in this moment? It's overthinking, or it's complicating an issue, or it's not having a hard conversation that needs to be had, or it's not knowing a solution. So I just take all of those, and I'm obsessed with Trello boards right now. So I just take those concepts that need some thought and plan and put them in my little strategic planning Trello board for when I'm in a good headspace to dive into them. And then
I
they're
love
out
that.
of my mind. Yeah. And it's free.
I love Trello.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think one of the things after you and I had started working together, I was like, what was your takeaway? Like, what did you get? And one of the things that really hit with me and is probably where the name Success Without Sacrifice came from is you said, and I don't know if I have the text message anymore, but you had said, you helped me realize that as women, we can have success and fulfillment. We can
Mm-hmm.
have success and freedom, and we don't have to sacrifice ourselves. And that was like, yes, that is like my goal for people, for women.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I appreciate you so much, Lisa. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day. I know you have a lot going on, and just coming here and opening up and getting really vulnerable and, just speaking to women. I hope anybody that's listening to this, I hope this gives you hope. If you are feeling burnt out, or if your team is feeling burnt out,
Mm-hmm.
I hope that this gives you hope that there is something different, that it doesn't have to, you don't have to live in constant stress just
Mm-hmm.
because you're a business owner. And I
Mm-hmm.
think we take on that belief of, oh, well, I'm a business owner. This is just how it is. And this is just
Mm-hmm.
how life is going to be. And it doesn't have to be that way. And Lisa is a living example. It doesn't mean she never has stress. It doesn't mean that everything's glorious all the time. It means that she has the awareness to pull herself out of it and get back into a better place. Lisa, are there any last tips or words or anything that you want to say to anybody that's listening, maybe specifically a high performer, or maybe it's in relation to the tumor that you have and wishing like you would have recognized or done something different earlier on?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me, faith is very important to me. So I live in this mindset of being a good steward with this gift that I've been given to run this agency and this team. And nobody's going to love it and run it in the way that I do with my skill sets and my heart, even my recovering people pleasing and recovering enabling. Those are gifts still and can be used well. And so since I'm the only one that can steward this business this way, just like other female business owners, like you're the only one that can steward your business in the way that you can. So give yourself all the tools, even if you don't think you have time on the calendar, even if you're overwhelmed already, even if you need to hire or you need to fire or whatever it is that you think you need to do, give yourself all the tools and ability to win and lead your team well. And so I find a lot of those tools through you, Cheree. I find just the self-awareness, just the exercises with the goals, the team assistance, the bigger perspective of like I'm too close to it. So just seeing another perspective. That's what I would encourage is like use all the tools available that are out there to steward well.
Thank you. I love it. Love it. Love it. Lisa, if there is anybody that wants to connect with you. Oh, actually, I have one more thing I want to talk about really quick. I know we're wrapping up, but because you had mentioned this when we had coffee a couple weeks ago, that you're really paying attention more to your female cycle. And you and I talked about this a little bit, but I've integrated this a lot more into the coaching that we do now. But how, because I think people, I want to talk specifically as a leader, because this is something we talked about, is recognizing where you're at in your cycle and how you respond or the expectations you have of your team, because it does, whether we want to ignore it and say it doesn't. And, people are just, people are like, oh, there's a bitchy and they're hormonal. And, but if we can learn that same self-awareness with our cycle and how that affects us as a leader, will you talk about that a little bit?
Oh my goodness. Cycle syncing. Love it. Like it's been very helpful and necessary, especially with the pituitary tumor. Like hormones are a little bit different around certain times of the month, but overall, like it's powerful. So I have found like there's from the 20th to the 25th, almost every month, like I pretty much don't plan anything. That's just not when I'm going to show up well for myself. And I know that. And so give the gift to the world of like just bowing out. And then I noticed like the week or two before, and I forget the names of the seasons, like but there's a week or two before where like everything is heightened for me. Like my mind is clear. Maybe I'm a little more agitated and I think it's just being annoyed and like getting ready for that time of the month. But really what it is, I'm talking really fast because I'm excited. So I'm going to slow down. Really what it is just a heightened awareness of things that need to be addressed or changed. And so I make a list of those things that are just plaguing me, that are annoying me a little more than usual, so that I can process them correctly when I'm in a better state of mind. And then during like summer season of the month, it's like all happiness. Everything is well with the world and plan and do and see and be and energy.
Yeah, it's really fascinating once you really learn how much it affects everything, and when you can learn to be okay with it. And you said, you have a week where you're not around anybody. You still have to be in your business, right? You still have to be in your business. It doesn't mean you got to shut down your business and do nothing. Just like in the rest season doesn't mean you shut down your business and do nothing. It just means you're more aware of what's going on, and you can give yourself grace and love and know and know what to say yes to and what to say no to. And so when we talk about kind of the ramp method in a month, we're talking really about also incorporating female cycle into that. And really understanding that and having that awareness. Because I know that even when it came to some of your team members and you were having issues, and we had worked together for 3 months, and so it's like, where are you at in your cycle? What's going on? And is this something that would normally bother you, or is it just because of where you're at hormone wise? And the thing too, I love the Moody app. So if you guys aren't, I don't know what you use, Lisa, but I always recommend the Moody app if you are interested in cycle syncing and learning what that is and how it affects you as a leader and just as a person showing up in the world. And even I would say even for your female employees, understanding that about them as well and helping them to understand how their body functions can be a real game changer, because men are on a 24-hour cycle. They perform and get more done in a 24-hour cycle, whereas women get an 8-day cycle. And so if we can understand that about ourselves and understand that also about our team members and females working together with females, and really learn how to manage that and understand it, I think workplaces would be a lot better. But I use the Moody app. Lisa, do you use an app or?
I use the Moody app also.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
The Moody app is really cool because it tells you what cycle you're in. It'll even tell you this might be how you're feeling. It'll send you a little like reminder every day of like, hey, this is how you can support your body with food or water or avoid alcohol during this time. And in some sense, it can be really overwhelming, but like just baby steps, just start with just learning it and tracking it. And I used to be like, I didn't even know when it was coming. It would just come out of nowhere. And I'd be like, wait, this happened already? Didn't I just have this? And so I never really understood it. And it's been a real game changer for me and everything that I do. And at least I know that when you and I were working together, we talked about this creativity wise too, because on Mondays were like your social media, like content days. So are you still doing that, or are you like clumping it into that creative energy time?
Absolutely. Yes. Mondays were challenging because I would try to like conjure things up and I wasn't in that headspace. And so, yes, they're more in like the block during my like summer season where I'm just energetic and positive and more fluid with that creativity.
Yeah. Because the other ways we get stuck in the like, what's wrong with me and why can't I do this? And then it's like, and that just adds more stress and frustration. So, yes, love that you are doing that and incorporating that a lot more. And thank you for talking about that, because I can talk about it, right? But for somebody else to actually be in the insurance industry who is applying it within your life and within your business, I think that's really helpful to understand, because it can feel like this like weird concept that can't really work. But it really does. It really does work. And so, yes, thank you for sharing that. Lisa, if people want to connect with you, what is the best way for them to reach out or connect with you if they just loved what you had to say or they have a question for you?
Email is awesome. And my email is Lisa, so Lisa at northtowninsurance.com, all spelled out.
Perfect. And then Instagram, you guys are at Northtown Insurance.
Yes.
So if you want some ideas on social media, they're killing it over there with their social media.
Thank you.
And I learned so much just from like watching your guys' Instagram reels and stuff. You guys are so fun. So, I want to say too, like, not everybody know yourself and know what your like strengths are, right? Even when it comes down to social media, because you can look at somebody else and be like, oh my gosh, like I could never do that. Don't do that if it's not you, if it doesn't align with you. But it aligns with your team and who you guys are, and you guys are just all fun and just have great fun personality. So I think it works really well for you.
Yeah. And it is a fun team building too. Like that's how we use it as well. So
yeah, love it. Awesome. Thank you so much, Lisa, for being here. Thank you for everybody listening today. If you just resonated with Lisa with this episode, if you are feeling burnt out, if your team is feeling burnt out, we do have a mastermind that is coming up starting in October. That's a combination of one-on-one coaching and a group incubator, literally walking through the process. And a lot of what you heard here with Lisa today, we take a holistic approach of life and business and really help you figure out what's working well and what's not working well, and how to make it all work really well together, so that you can continue your success and make the impact that you want to make on your community and on the world. So thank you again for listening today, and we will be back with you next week.
Thank you so much for listening to the Insurance Revolutionized podcast today. We know there is a lot on your plate, so it means the world to us that you stopped in to give us a listen. We hope you will join us each week as we dive into topics such as mindset, goal setting, productivity, self-care, and so much more. We want to inspire more women to have success without sacrificing what is most important to them, and we need your help. If this podcast has inspired you, would you do us a favor? Would you take a minute to leave us a rating and a review, or share with your friends? Let's change the face of insurance for women. Until next time.